Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the roadmap for Warhammer 3. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It helps out a ton on the channel. Come by, check out the offerings as well. We have lots and lots of legendary campaigns. I'm going to start doing more of those. I know I haven't released any in a few weeks because I was on vacation and my computer was down, and I'm just now getting everything set back up and in the swing of things. So I do have a new Slanesh campaign that I'll start releasing probably later today, maybe tomorrow, and then we'll kind of go from there and see what people want. And if you'd like to donate to support a campaign, it's just $3 an episode, minimum 10 episodes, and you can do either a Warhammer 3 campaign or a Warhammer 2 campaign. I know a lot of content creators are going back and doing more Warhammer 2 stuff, and based on this roadmap, we might see a lot more of that. So just let me know what you're interested in. Just email me, thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com, and we can make that happen. Okay, well, let's go ahead and go through here, and I will just start off by saying I think this is a very, very disappointing roadmap, and I think it's pretty bad. So anyways, let's go in here and see. So not good news, in my opinion, but let's talk about it. Okay. So, hey there, Total War Warhammer fans. We're excited to provide a window in what lies ahead. The roadmap outlines brand new content and updates coming your way over the course of the year, including new DLC packs, old world updates, and more releasing alongside a steady cadence of bug fixes and patches into the game. Okay, so they're trying to make it sound good here. So that's promising at the start. As with any timeline, stuff may shift, okay, and they're going to give us an update once a quarter on sort of the progress on different things. I would really like to see at least once a month, once every 3 months, update on content that people really want to see. It seems pretty lazy to me. It's like you can't throw out one of these posts like once a month just to give us an update on what's happening. That's rough. When you've got a game, obviously it's a different genre, but like League of Legends, it's like at least once a week they give you a post about what's going on, and they actively update the game, fixing bugs, balancing champions, all that kind of stuff every 2 weeks. Now, that's a competitive game, so I don't expect them to do that this often, but I think they could at least communicate once a month when other major games, sometimes communicate once a week, minimum, and more than that. So once every 3 months for just like a simple post seems kind of rough. Okay, final note, that's only the beginning of the journey. You can expect this thing to improve. Well, I hope so. It's like that. I mean, that's a given, right? People are assuming you're going to add content and try to make it better, so there's no reason. I mean, that's cool and everything, but it seems like the last time they did one of these posts as well, like that 1.1 update, they're making this sound like this is like a new or really cool thing, or like they're doing us a favor by doing this. I'm like, this is the bare minimum, is to communicate with people and try to make your game something they want to play. I mean, it's like, well, today, guys, we're going to talk about breathing oxygen and why it's good, It's like, okay, cool, but you're making it sound like you're doing us a favor. This is, like, unusually, like, a good thing. It's like, no, should be standard. We appreciate all who have supported us over the past 6 years since this and this and this. And to everyone just now joining us to create our most expansive game to date, thank you. Okay, again, good, but in like the service industry, we would call this a verbal tip back in the day, right? Someone would say, "Oh, you did such a good job. You're so wonderful." It's like, well, why don't you express that with a tip? Because you never wanted that. As a server, that's not a good sign a lot of times if people are like overpraising you at the end, because that usually meant they're trying to compensate for not giving you a good tip. Sometimes you call it the verbal tips. You get like 5 on 100 or something, and they tell you did an awesome job. That's what it feels like here. It feels like we're getting a verbal tip, like, y'all are so awesome, we appreciate all of you fans, but we're going to be shortchanging you what we think you probably deserve. Okay, so that's just kind of rhetorical stuff, but sure, it's mostly just standard. Okay, so they're outlining it in terms of quarters. So this is April, May, June, and then they're going to be talking about August, September, October, and then they've got a fourth quarter there as well with November, December. I may have missed a month in there, but anyways, y'all know, quarters. July, August, September, and then October, November, December. There we go. Okay, Following our massive 1.1 update, we have a steady cadence of releases. This was not massive, in my opinion. Like, what significantly changed system-wide? Like, they might feel that it's massive. It is not massive. It was missing virtually every feature anyone wanted to see. It was a bunch of, like, bug fixes for things that people expected to not be a problem on launch. Again, it feels like they're trying to market this as a huge deal, as like, you know, going out of their way, doing the player base a huge favor by cleaning up stuff that should not have been a problem in the first place. So I don't, like, it's good that they did it, but don't oversell it, man. You're still missing a lot of stuff that people want to see. Like, they just oversell the most minor things. I mean, and this is going to be another theme that we're going to see throughout these notes, is it feels like they're really understaffed. Like, the way they're representing this, if this felt massive to them, they've got, like, one guy working on this or something in like, a basement somewhere. Because just look at the amount of effort that just modders can do, who get a very modest amount of money from, you know, Patreon or whatever. You look at, like, the SFO mod or Radius. Like, these guys have tons and tons of optimizations they're able to crank out with a very small staff, a very small budget, and they do a ton to overhaul the game and add a bunch of, like, crazy new features and units and all sorts of fun stuff. And they're just, a lot of them are, you know, have other jobs or other obligations. They have a small staff. Like, they should not have more resources than the Total War. Right? Like, these guys, why don't they have, you know, like 30 people working on this minimum? Like, this is their cash cow. This is their biggest, like, moneymaker of all time, I'm pretty sure. Or certainly close. Again, Three Kingdoms, because it has the Chinese theme. Maybe it reached the Chinese audience better. But just overall, in terms of player base, if you look at Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2, that was their biggest Total War ever. So this should be your primary focus. This is what you need to be doing. So if you have moved your staff away to look at historical titles or start building out whatever you're supposed to be doing, put them back on this. Like, it feels like they almost gave up on this on release. Like, well, we're still going to support this for years to come. I don't remember any of this kind of verbiage with Warhammer 2. They're like, we're fully committed to this. We've got all kinds of new cool stuff coming out right now. And it was just assumed people were going to enjoy it. They didn't have to tell you that you should be enjoying it. But anyways, didn't feel massive to me. Maybe it is massive, again, if they're understaffed, which feels like they are. We'll get to that again in a second. These releases not only aim to include fixes based on the priorities of our players, false, but also introduce new features and tools to continue expanding. So again, they're selling it. Like, they're trying to convince us with words what people know is not true when they actually play it. It did fix some things, but it did not address the major thing, Immortal Empires, that I was pounding the table on. If you didn't watch my last video, that should be the absolute 100% number one thing they do, because that's what, like, 90% or more of the player base wants. They want that sandbox experience. And like, the story mode is okay, I appreciate it, but, like, I feel like they over budgeted towards that. They put too many resources into the story mode. People will like to play it once or twice, but then they want the sandbox mode. And to me, this feels like borderline incompetence at this point on behalf of the leadership at the company. And I'm not trying to, like, belittle anybody or call anyone out specifically, but just look at the statistics of the game, right? Look at how people are playing it on Steam or other, you know, platforms. What are they playing the most? I'll guarantee you they have those numbers, and I'll guarantee you it's Mortal Empires, because that's what I get requests for when people donate for campaigns over and over and over again. I don't even know if I got a request for Vortex, maybe one in like 5 years. And I've done, you know, like probably at least 30 or 40 donation campaigns. So people obviously want that. That's the biggest thing. Because the thing about this that is fundamentally flawed, in my opinion, that I talked about in the last video at length, and I won't rehash all of it here, but they're marketing Immortal Empires as new content. They're saying, this is new content, this is a huge undertaking, and, you know, we're going to get to it when we get to it, is what it feels like. But the way that the upgrades have been structured, it feels like you're losing DLC. actively getting less content by playing Warhammer 3 than Warhammer 2 because they're supposed to build on each other. They established that precedent with Warhammer 1 into Warhammer 2. It's like, okay, Warhammer 1 is not dead content anymore. We still want you to be able to play Warhammer 1, and we want you to be able to play the DLC that you bought. We want you to be able to play Wood Elves and Norska and all this other stuff. Which was a very savvy business move, because that's what people really want. They just want all of the races in there. They want all of the options to play with. And so Mortal Empires was probably the best idea they had in this franchise. And they came out with it within like a month of when the game released. Keep in mind, Warhammer 1, I believe, released in 2016, and then Warhammer 1 was 1 year later in 2017 with, 4 new races and Mortal Empires ready to go immediately. And it was a massive success. And then they had a reasonable amount of content coming out over time, which was fine. But people had the Mortal Empires, which kept them busy, kept them occupied, kept them interested. But now they've had 6 years to develop this, knowing that Warhammer 2 is their most popular title of all time, I believe, by a very large margin. They've had 6 years to develop this, and they have had other projects, but you have to know that people are going to expect a lot out of this. If it was rushed, if they did try to do Warhammer 3 within an extra year, I think people might cut them a little more slack, but it's been 6 freaking years. And I know they have to do a lot of extra development here, right? So they, the demon factions are not as fleshed out, I don't think, in the lore, in the army books. Cathay, Kislev, they just don't have as much background to build on, so they have to do that world building. So they probably had to hire some people to try to make that happen. And I thought they did an okay job with that, with like the vampire accounts and Tomb Kings and stuff like that. Those were some okay additions. I wouldn't say they're amazing, but they're okay. Like they're good. They're good enough. But with 6 years, and you don't have Immortal Empires like anywhere close to release, it's a massive problem. And that's what people want. So it's not that that's new content, that's old content. Because if I bought Wood Elves, if I bought any of this other DLC, if you've been a loyal fan, you've bought that for years now. You've probably spent $200 or $300 on DLC, and now you can't play it with their newest title. And again, I know not every game allows that. If you spend DLC on the first installment in a series and then it goes to the third installment, then all of a sudden you don't have access to that, right? So like StarCraft 1, you bought Brood War or whatever, and then StarCraft 2 comes out, you don't have access to Brood War anymore. It's like, okay, I get that. But this was marketed, they set the precedent for this from Warhammer 1 to Warhammer 2 that you will be able to play all of the stuff. You are not going to lose your DLC. But now, every time they don't have Immortal Empires, it feels like a step back. Like there's less diversity. We don't get to use the DLC we already paid for. The only thing that's changing, to some extent, is just balancing, adding in kind of the new town system, right? Like every town on the map, they're going to have to add in, every minor settlement, the ability to get siege, and they have to put in the resource system as far as like building towers and barricades and all that. I get it. You have to rework that stuff, right? But again, you've had 6 years to do it, and it's not going to significantly add to the individual factions and lords. It's just like redoing the towns, a bunch of stuff that is not really what people would classify as like, new content. It's like maybe 10% new and like 90% what they already had. So it just feels like a major oversight to not work on this and to seemingly not even understand just how much people care about this and just how bad it feels to not have access to things that you paid for before when you were it was implied you were going to be able to have access to them. I mean, at a bare minimum, just make the old world factions playable if you have the DLC on the Warhammer 3 map. Like, why can't I just play as Carl or Manfred or Ikit, or not Ikit, but Snitch? Why can't I play as these other legendary lords that are already present on the map, that already have the towns, that are updated, right, with the new resource system, that have already been balanced for Warhammer 3, in theory, and things like that? Like, why is that not a possibility? That's what, okay, you can't do the whole map, but you can't even, like, throw a little teaser here. I mean, I know that, like, maybe they felt pressure, like you would have to put them into the story mode, but no. Like, why can't you just have a non-story mode, sandbox mode? Turn off the rifts, and you can play as old world factions. That's what it's going to be like on Immortal Empires. I mean, there's a mod right now that just adds a checkbox that says turn off rifts, turn off story mode, which is great. Check out that mod. But it just seems like a major oversight and, like, not understanding your audience in terms of believing that people would perceive this. So it sounds like they're trying to convince people with these words. Like, they know people aren't convinced. They know people aren't happy, but they're trying to convince them with words. You need to convince us with actions. You need to convince us that people should still be playing this instead of Warhammer 2 or any number of other games out there. So I love the franchise. I really want it to succeed, but it's like the leadership and sort of the messaging through this entire rollout of Warhammer 3, I feel, has been very problematic. Okay, so in May, later next month, we'll be delivering 1.2. We're still in the early months since the game's launch. True, but you have to understand, people are not very patient with this stuff, right? They want things to be, like, relatively good immediately on launch, and they want there to be new content fairly regularly, right? May's release will continue to focus on implementing fixes for community-reported issues while improving areas of the game where people would like to see tweaks. Okay, this will be a common theme with regular releases following major milestones, builds to update the first version of the game as we work to make the game better. Okay, good. So you're doing standard, making the game, like, the way it should have been on release. Great. Several key issues. AI factions rebuild towers too quickly. I don't think so. It has a timer on it. It's like 90 seconds. They build the tower. I'm pretty sure that's what the humans are too. The game, I think the game is easier than Warhammer 2 for a lot of different reasons. So I don't, maybe this is a problem on lower difficulty levels. I haven't noticed much of a problem on higher difficulty levels, but sure. But it's like, why are you working on this stuff instead of Immortal Empires or like Chaos Dwarfs or something else that's like actually really meaningful? Like, they're sort of headlining this as a key issue. Anyways, it just seems weird. Okay, when flying units attack ground units, sometimes unresponsive. Okay, range units fail to engage valid targets. Okay, demon factions automatically declare war on Slaanesh vassals. Okay, I mean, that is annoying. Like, these are problems, right? Like, and players getting stuck in the Slaanesh realm. Okay. AI factions with an anti-player bias. They should have an anti-player bias. They should come after you. Definitely on higher difficulty levels, and once you get so strong, they have that diplomatic penalty. When you get higher, it says you're a higher threat level, and they're more likely to come at you, but the game needs to be more challenging. They should come at you. I feel like they already, they do, but it doesn't feel like it's more than Warhammer 1 or Warhammer 2. Maybe it does that on like easy difficulty, and that rattles players or something. But I think definitely on at some level, and definitely on legendary or very hard, they should be coming for you, because otherwise you're just gonna steamroll them. Like, they have to gang up on you. It is annoying, but that's one of the only ways they even have any remote shot of taking you down. So they should explicitly aim to go for the player, like, not at an absolutely absurd level, like people coming across the whole map to get you and running like through everybody. But I feel like it's reasonable. Like, yeah, there might be someone else they're at war with on the side, but they're still going to send stuff to you because you're the player. You're a major threat. Like, it's going to give you, better interactions, more interesting situations to have to deal with early on. So, I don't know, that's fine. Snow is too bright, sure. Auto-resolve improvements. The difficulty and scaling of auto-resolve has been reduced on harder difficulty settings and will now be determined by battle difficulty. Okay, but people who are playing on higher, like, legendary campaign settings are also going to be on very hard. So, it's not going to matter most of the time. The auto-resolve is obnoxious to some extent. I'm not sure what all they've changed, but I do think that you should have to fight battles that are, like, reasonably close. but a lot of it is, it's pretty overtuned. It's pretty overtuned. But you also, I mean, you have to keep in mind that it doesn't know how well you're going to use magic. It doesn't know how well you're going to do different battle tactics. So there's some things that just really can't predict. But there should be like a standard points system. Like they should just look at the like the multiplayer points, like the cost of units, add them up, and then it needs to be somewhere in that range, right? So like this, you know, you maybe have a 6,000 point army, the enemy has a 3,000 point army, they are defending a siege, so maybe you give them like a 20% bonus, something like that. So now they've got like a 4,800 point army. So then that's how they balance it, right? They just add all that up and look at a percentage. Okay, so maybe you have a 70% more points than they do, or maybe of the total points in the battle, you control 70% of them. So you're 70% favored in auto resolve versus 30%. Just something that's really easy to add up with very clear modifiers. Right, so if maybe levels of a lord, like if you have a higher level lord, each point of a higher level lord, you know, might give you an additional 1% advantage in auto resolve, or 2% advantage, something like that. Like I said, if you're defending a siege, it should give you, you know, a little bit more favor in terms of that, a 30% bonus if you're defending a siege. Or, you know, just things like that. Like, it needs to be very sort of mathematical and transparent so that people understand exactly why it's giving you the rating that it's giving you. You know, it should even give you something you can hover, where it just kind of breaks down the calculation really quick for you. So, I don't know, but just something kind of simple like that, just based on the multiplayer point system, could be good. And then on higher difficulties, it's kind of ironic because higher difficulties, people are going to play better most of the time. So they should advantage the player more in the AI, because it's more likely the player is going to use good tactics and magic and things like that. So disadvantaging the player is not really realistic, but if they're wanting to make it harder and they want to make you fight more battles, like, I understand it from that perspective, but it's probably just going to be more of an annoyance. I mean, yeah, you can set the auto resolve to 80% enemy favored, but if the player gets a decisive victory when they're fighting it, is that really like worth their time? You know what I mean? So yeah, they could optimize it, but I don't know what they're doing to get those numbers, but they need to chill a little bit with that. I agree. Improvements, unit responsiveness, okay, whatever. Dueling, whatever. Tech trees, I think they're fine for the most part. I mean, some things could be optimized, but sure. Leaderboard setup for the 5 people that play multiplayer. I don't know. There's probably more than that, but sure. Regiments of Renown. What about the Regiments of Renown Warhammer 3? Paid DLC packs. Regiments of Renown will continue to be added alongside our paid DLC in the future. Our first few updates will include free Regiments of Renown for each of the game's core races to expand and freshen up the game's roster for all the races with each update, as opposed to powering up one race at a time. This is a good change. I like this. Adding some Regiments of Renown for free into the game for all factions. That's good. That's a positive, and they're doing that relatively quickly. So hats off to them. That is a good thing. That'll add a little bit more flavor, a little bit more unit diversity. Good. I like it. Okay, so no mention of Immortal Empires here, or Chaos Dwarves. July, August, September. Okay. Following 1.2, 1.3 will give us another opportunity, introducing more Regiments of Renown, improved Cathay formation attack, skill tree reworks, Tzeentch and Slaanesh replenishment rates. I guess, I mean, Slaanesh should not have a very high replenishment rate because they can get free armies with their devotees, and they're already just powerful as hell. Like, I think Slaanesh is the number 1 or number 2 strongest faction right now. I know a lot of people disagree with that. Go watch my Slaanesh campaign that I'm bringing out. They just have so much power. Like, early game, they have one of the best legendary lords in the game. They have extremely powerful buffs. They can get fairly early on. They have a very favorable start position. They have favorable diplomacy with just about everybody that they want to have favorable diplomacy with on the map. They're just incredibly strong, and the replenishment's fine. Like, I don't know. I don't think Slaanesh needs a lot of buffs. And Tzeentch, I don't really know, but I feel like Tzeentch is probably okay too. Again, they can manipulate things and gain like big campaign advantages through their kind of twisting the fates, whatever that mechanic is. So I think they're fine. I don't think everybody needs to have, like Nurgle level replenishment rates. Like that's a thing with Nurgle. And that's why I mean that's one of the big reasons why Nurgle is number one is they have a lot of campaign stuff that's really powerful with the plagues, and they also have good replenishment rates. But there are different trade-offs with Nurgle as well built into their building system, and their buildings are super expensive, right? Like Slaanesh's buildings, a lot of their major buildings are like 1,000 gold, 2,000 gold. They're super cheap versus Nurgle, is 5,000 or 10,000 gold for things. So they pay, and they their economy is not great because of that. Slaanesh has an insane economy. So it's like it's balanced around that. Nurgle has good replenishment because they have other things that are problematic. So I don't know. Again, maybe it's a lower difficulty thing, but this can kind of feel bad, I guess, for some people that don't have it all. But I think it's a calculated weakness for these factions to not have great replenishment to make up for their powerful campaign mechanics and the efficiency of their buildings and units. Okay, increasing frequency of field battles. So I know people have complained about this. I actually kind of like the sieges. I think they're interesting and kind of fun in ways that, like, normal field battles are cool too, but how are they going to do that? My worry is that they're going to, like, lower campaign movement range a lot or, like, space out the towns so that you can't just go from town to town fighting. They could make the AI want to sally out and fight you more, which means the AI is going to be fighting dumber battles. Because most of the time when they retreat to a town, it's because they're a lot weaker and they would lose the fight, which is what they should do. So yeah, I don't know how you can force that, the frequency of those, unless, again, you're either lowering campaign movement speed or adding, like, Lightning Strike. Making Lightning Strike more accessible would force more field battles. But I don't feel like it's that much of a problem. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Battle related fixes, sure. Total War Assembly Kit. Okay, so now the mods can actually do modding. That's interesting. I'm going to release that in September. I mean, I don't know what all this includes, because there are already some mods out there. Easy creation of new mods. So I'm not sure why this was taking so long. Okay, update 2.0. Now, this is the last thing they mentioned, so I'm going to assume this is probably September. So this is going to be like closing in on a whole year, maybe 3/4 of a year after release. They're going to do Immortal Empires beta. What the hell do you mean beta? You've had 6, almost 7 years now to work on this. What? Immortal Empires was a much-loved addition to Warhammer 2, and Update 2.0 will introduce the first iteration of the game. It is the core aspect of the game. It is the major reason people play Warhammer 2 as much as they do because of this. It's not like a little decoration. It's not a much-loved little addition. It is the primary. It's the show. It's the main event. That's what people want. The Vortex with the cute little storyline, just like Warhammer 3 with the cute little storyline, that's an addition. I wouldn't say much loved, but I would say that's an addition. The main driving reason people play is Immortal Empires. Merge maps and factions, for those who own them, yes, into one. Allowing you to deploy the factions you love across a massive combined battlefield. Yes, people like it. It is the main reason people want to play Warhammer. Is a monumental undertaking that will continue to grow and evolve from the moment it lands into the game. Why has it not been evolving for 6 years? As I keep saying. It's like, oh, we're trying out this new thing. We're not sure if people are going to like it. This Mortal Empires business, right? Where you can play all the hundreds of dollars of DLC you've bought over the years. We don't know if people are going to be into that or not. So we're just going to throw it out there and just test it out. Again, it seems like a major oversight or a major priority problem. in terms of the way this is getting like pitched. We initially be making it available as an integrated open beta across all platforms. Why are you beta testing this thing that should have been in the initial launch, or like within a month of the initial launch? And they did it within a month. They had like a year to plan this thing. Warhammer 2. I get that when they released Warhammer 1, they probably held back some factions and content on purpose and then rolled it out to Warhammer 2. So we really don't know how long they were working on Warhammer 2 before it released. But there's definitely a significant gap between Warhammer 1, Warhammer 2, and then Warhammer 3. That they should have had time to work on this. Okay, allow us to focus on updating balance, map, races, and other areas where you can continue to make adjustments based on player feedback. Yes, okay. Then exceed those things in the long run. Yes, but it should have already been there. I get it, they want it to be polished, but man, why is it not polished already? Like, you're already bleeding out people. Like, there's so many people that just aren't even playing Warhammer 3 and are just really frustrated with it. And I love the game. I want it to be a success. I like it. I enjoy it. I just think that this should be in here a lot faster. I don't think it's unreasonable for players to have expected this to be in here much faster. Or for them to at least express like a much more priority. I mean, if it is like a much bigger deal than it seems, like, you need to explain that. At this point, there's like, we need more of an explanation for this, for people to like not be upset about this, right? You need to say something like, we began working on this back in 2017, but we ran into some problems in 2019 when it was clear we had to deal with these assets or these kind of graphical problems, or, you know, these other issues that came about and required us to hire a few more engineers to deal with this and that. And then we had this other issue in 2020 or 2021 that put us back additional time for these reasons and these reasons. So just like, express to us, tell us, what are some of these challenges? Why is this taking longer than people expect? What is it that we don't understand or appreciate about this process that you want to show us, right? About why this is late, effectively. Because right now it just feels like you just didn't do anything with it. It just feels lazy to some extent. And maybe that's not fair. Like I said, I'm sure there's something that's like more challenging than people think, but right now it just feels like either they don't care, they're lazy, they're understaffed. Like, there's just something that's just like not clicking here. Continue updating it over several years. Why not longer than that? Like, to me, this reads like we're already on to the next project. Like, we've released this. We don't care. We just sent like 70% of our staff to go work on whatever the next big thing is, whether it's Warhammer 40K, or whether it's, another historical title or whatever. So it's like, the fact they're even putting a timeline on this, like, why would you say several years? Why would you not just say, we want to support this indefinitely? And we want to ensure that those of you who are most excited to play it have the chance to participate and share. Why are you saying most excited? Like, that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants this. It's not like there's a couple of people that are most excited for Immortal Empires. It's almost literally, I would say 99% or more of the player base who actively cares about the game and plays it wants to play Immortal Empires. I mean, to participate and share in its success, that's cool, but like, why wasn't this in the normal beta? Why wasn't this in the Warhammer 3, like, standard beta? There's a ton to unpack about Immortal Empires, so you can expect more news about it as we get closer to its beta release. Share some of this. Give us an explanation for why this is taking so long. Like, are you adding super cool new mechanics that are, like, that we just aren't even conceptualizing or thinking about at this point? Is it more than just sandbox? Is there like an entire overhaul of a resource system? Or I suspect like how chaos spawns is probably going to be overhauled. Like, what's going on? Like, what's something, again, why is this taking so long? Like, you don't have to give us all of the details, but just give us something. Give us a sense that, like, you're not lazy, that you do care, and that you're spending a lot of time on something that's extremely complex that's going to be rewarding. Because right now the assumption is you're just adjusting the map and you're adding in the factions that we already have. Okay, so in the next few months, we'll be sitting down with the game's DLC director, Richard Aldrich, so we can share his insight about the project. The thing is, this is not DLC. Again, this is old content for the most part. It's factions that are already there. Just release... maybe they're being too perfectionist about this. Just release the damn Immortal Empires map. Just throw it out there. It can have some bugs. It can have some unbalanced things. Some factions can be a little too strong. You know, it can... I would rather see it come out and be a little bit unpolished, but just like playable, where you can still just play all the things, rather than waiting an additional year to get the full version of it. So we can share insight about the project. We'd like to set up some AMAs with the team leading up to the beta if they're not too busy. So stay tuned. What the hell do you... If they're not too busy, what the hell are they doing? I guess like making the game, but... Bro, you can take out a couple of hours from the day and communicate with the community. What do you mean you're not too busy? You better be talking to us about this. Okay, Old World Update, Warriors of Chaos. Starting with 2.0, we'll be looking to overhaul some of the last remaining races not previously spruced up from Warhammer 1 or Warhammer 2. The goal to bring them up to date with the newer mechanics implemented in Warhammer 3. Introductions of new systems, units, features, and balance to make them more formidable force on the battlefield 2.0. Okay, so Warriors of Chaos, yes, they're going to have to rework that. They're going to rework that. Cool, good. Blood Pack 3. Blood Pack will add a ton of new particle and visual effects to the game. Owners of this will get it for free. Okay, again, this feels like something that should have been baseline in the game, but sure. Lord Pack 1. Our first DLC pack also releases alongside 2.0. Lord packs introduce several new legendary lords, heroes, and a variety of units to deploy across the grand campaign and multiplayer. Watch for more information, including more about the 4 champions joining the roster as we get closer to its release. Okay, so they're releasing 4 new legendary lords, presumably for existing factions. I don't know if they're all Warhammer 3 or if there's going to be some for Warhammer 2. 4 seems like a lot. Just do 2, guys. Do 2. Spread it out. 2 months later, do another 2. I mean, I'm cool to have as much content as possible, but it's like you could spread some of this out. It'd be fine. October, November, December. As we enter these things, we're doing these. A lot of it's TBD. Regiments of Renown 3. Pull together one final release to wrap this up. 3.0 or a smaller 2.2. Okay, who cares? What does that even mean? One major focus of either will be the Immortal Empires game mode, which will be seeing big improvements in the last build of the year. So you're putting off Mortal Empires until October, September or October, and now you're saying that you're already anticipating it's going to have a hell of a lot of problems, and you're going to maybe release a big improvement to it at the end of the year. So you're already planning on it not being great on release, going on 7 years. How is that built into your timeline? Yeah, I know we're going to F this up. Like, hire more people. Or what? Like, what is the problem? Like, is it one guy? Is it like Sean working in the basement and he's trying to do all this by himself? Get the freaking team. Like, why is this not a priority? That's what I don't understand. Like, do they not understand this makes them money? Like, this is a huge moneymaker. Like, I would be pissed if I was the CEO and, like, because think about it, like, with Warhammer 3, if this released really well and had Mortal Empires very quickly, people will want to go and buy the older DLC too. It keeps the content fresh. So maybe you have new people that were maybe really young. You know, maybe they were like 10 when the game initially released in 2016, but now that Warhammer 3 is coming out, it looks really cool. And now they say, hey, I want to play it now. And now they're, 16 to 18, and they just were too young for the initial content. Or maybe they just didn't hear about the game or just weren't interested in it back in the day, and now they want it. They just get Warhammer 3. Now you can sell them, like the Skaven DLC. You can sell them the Wood Elves DLC. You can sell them just Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2. Like, there's so many options to sell your entire catalog of DLC if Warhammer 2, or Warhammer 3 rather, releases well and, has Immortal Empires. Like, there's a lot riding on this. And the longer it takes, the more people are just going to check out and go play something else. There are a lot of other games out there right now that people could be playing. And you see it already. Like, a lot of these, I see a lot of the, and I'm not going to call out anyone specifically, but I see all these other people that have traditionally been, Warhammer content creators, playing other stuff, whether it's, I forgot what it is, like that Bannerlord game, or, a Civ game, or just some other type of strategy game, Paradox games. People are, like, I'm seeing all these other content creators, so few of them are actively doing Warhammer 3 content. And then when people are doing the content, they're going back and doing Warhammer 2. Like, they're hemorrhaging content creators and, hemorrhaging player base too, because of how long this is taking to do the Immortal Empires. And that's the most important DLC, if that's how they want to market it, because it's the gateway to all of the other DLC, right? If you release a blood pack or something for Warhammer 3, okay, that's cool. They buy a blood pack for $5 or whatever, right? But if it's a successful Immortal Empires, then they're buying Skaven. Like I said, they're buying Wood Elves. They're buying Norskins. Maybe they're buying the Warriors of Chaos. You could even bundle a lot of this stuff together and sell it as a package. Just $100, get both games and all DLC. Something like that. Like, there's huge money opportunities if you do this correctly. So that's why I don't understand why they seem to have this very, like, lackadaisical vision from leadership about this. And again, if they're understaffed or they have problems, hire more people. It's worth the money. Or partner up with somebody. I don't know. Figure it out as management. But, like, get this out here. There's just not a sense of urgency. Like, there needs to be a sense of urgency. And we're sorry, guys. We really ran into these problems, or we had these issues, or whatever. I mean, I know they don't want to do, like, a TMI about, like, what's going on with their company, but it just feels like it's a completely different narrative and a completely different approach. Like, it'd be interesting to go back. I'm not going to do it because this video is already getting long. But just go back and, like, look at the press releases for Warhammer 1 and especially Warhammer 2, and just look at how they were talking and how their vision was explained and the timeline of events. And it just feels completely different. Like, they had priorities. They had a fire under their ass. They were trying to get stuff out. They understood the stakes. But here, it just feels like they've lost vision of that. Too early to talk about 2023, but we can see plenty of projects that stretch into 2023 and beyond. Don't worry, we'll revisit the timeline several times throughout the year, both to highlight the projects that have been shifted or added to the schedule, so you're already thinking you might have to move stuff around, to highlight different areas where the game, inevitably, other Total War games continue to grow. See, that's the thing. Why are you saying this? This just kind of further perpetuates my theory in that they're already checked out of this game. Like, that they're already moving on it. They're just, like, trying to sell this, and then they're done. They're like, all right, Warhammer 3, it popped, it sold. Now we don't give a shit. We're going on to the next project, right? We're going on to, do our next little Thrones of Britannia or whatever, thing. So, like, we know you're gonna have other titles. It's just how you're representing this game right now feels like you don't care, or it's not important. It's a very minor priority. It's like an annoyance. I guess we'll get to Immortal Empires. Just whatever. We're working on other stuff. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it feels. It's like, we know there's going to be other ones, but why are you saying that in something specifically about Warhammer? It's its own thing. This is its own fan base. You should know. And why don't you know, though? Right? Like, Warhammer is its own player base. There are a lot of people that play Total War Warhammer that will not play the historical titles. There's a lot less people that will do that. So it's not like you're talking about Total War, you know, Rome 2, and then people might go play Medieval, and then people might go play Attila, or whatever, right? The historical people are the historical people, and they might be interested in hearing about some other historical titles coming out, but, you know, this fantasy sort of zone, it's its own beast. Now, maybe they're talking about 40K. Maybe they're wanting to do something like a Total War, Lord of the Rings, or, you know, some other fantasy game. That would be cool. I get that. But it's like this game right here, right now. It's important that you prioritize it. A few other things we'd like to highlight. Items that don't have a specific timeline yet. Chat. The chat systems. Who cares? It's just like a, oh no, some guy beat me in a one-on-one and said something mean online. It's like, I get it, man, but like, why is this a huge deal? Like, I get it, dude, but it's one-on-one. It's such a small player base. Just add a disable chat. Mute. That's it. Who cares? Otherwise, add in a bot that automatically detects like racial slurs or something, and then just add a mute feature. I don't think like moderating the chat is as important for this game as it would be with something like League of Legends or, you know, some other major competitive title that's team based, because it's one-on-one. So a lot of times you don't have anyone on your team to complain about. It's you. You either lost or not, right? And then number two, people just probably aren't as competitive. There just aren't as many people that play the competitive version of this as the rest. And I think a mute chat feature is fine. You don't like need to talk with anyone if you don't want to, right? Like in League of Legends or something, you still need to be able to communicate to actually function as a team, and they have ping features and other stuff where you can mute and still be effective with that. But anyways, fine. But that's not what people really want to hear about. Dominion or domination, fine. Multiplayer, continuing to work on land battles, sure. Multiplayer team is also investigating how to share matchmaking queue and rating. Okay, sure. So what did you guys, what's one thing that you noticed about this that's missing? Any guesses? No new races. No new races are mentioned whatsoever. The dwarves. Didn't they tease Chaos Dwarfs? Didn't they tease it? I thought they posted up a picture or something. I don't know, but almost an entire calendar year before you put in like one DLC, one like race DLC. What? I mean, I get it. It's not gonna, like, they're really cutting it. They're really running out of options for DLC. Like, they're really running out of options. So I know they can't release one every few months, but a whole calendar year so close to release where you don't have any DLC, you don't have the Chaos Dwarves or you know, any of the other possible options out there. That's bad, man. That you can't even mention it. Like, they're talking about 2023. They're talking about chat and domination and shit. You can't even say, we know everyone wants Chaos Dwarves. We want to be able to optimize the base game first, make sure we get Immortal Empires in a good place, and then we intend to add Chaos Dwarves within the first quarter of 2023. So that really is very troublesome that they're mentioning this stuff and they're not even mentioning Chaos Dwarves or even like a race pack. We know there are more races to explore in the Warhammer universe, and we intend on adding one of them sometime in the first quarter of 2023. Stay tuned. You know, something like that. That's very vague. The fact they don't mention it at all. And this is not even just the first quarter of 2023. This is literally just all of 2023, the ideas they have, presumably they're thinking about right now. that's bad. That's really bad. So like it's cool that they're adding extra lords at a certain point and some regiments of renown, but man, Immortal Empires and Chaos Dwarves are what people want. I mean, they released a lot of stuff. I thought it was I was actually really looking forward to their release schedule because they gave us like 9 playable lords on release, which is great. But then I guess they didn't leave any in the tank for like new factions or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, to me, Immortal Empires is probably more important than the Chaos Dwarves, just being able to play all of the old stuff. But the dwarves are cool, man. People love dwarves. Like, in the Chaos Dwarves, seem like they'd be really fun. So the fact that they aren't even mentioned at all, that no race pack is mentioned at all for at least a calendar year, and maybe even into 2023 is not good. So this is a pretty disappointing, I would say very disappointing press release in my mind. It just seems like they don't understand the audience, or they're understaffed. They don't have the resources. And I think if that's the case, they need to tell us that. They need to show us we care. You know, they say stuff here like, thank you so much for being a good loyal fans. Great. You know we care about you. Why don't you show us you care about us? Like, I don't feel like this is a priority. I don't feel that sense of urgency. Like, we're disappointed in what's gone on so far, guys, and we really want to fix it. We want to get back on track. Here's what we're going to do. We're shifting up the management, or we're adding in some new staff, or we're finding some ways to optimize our workflow. We're going to be able to release these things to you guys in a timely fashion. So I think just kind of recognizing, like, publicly that they goofed up with the release and with this schedule, that for whatever reason they underestimated X, or something's just taking longer, or is more challenging technically than they anticipated, or they were understaffed because of COVID, or whatever, just some narrative that explains and articulates, look, we know we messed up, we know you guys want this, we care, we're doing our best to give you this, but we're facing these obstacles, so please hang with us, we're going to get this out as soon as we can. Just something that feels genuine, feels like they care, like they're invested, like they're not just already looking to the next project. Because again, this is not the type of project I think you should do that on. With like Thrones of Britannia or these like little smaller titles, it's like, okay, if you want to release that and then just check out and go to the next title, it's a $30 standalone title. Okay, sure, that's fine, right? But when you have people that have invested hundreds of dollars on DLC for all of these games, they've been loyal fans for 6 years, and it's such a rich universe where there's so much you could do. Like, you could keep adding to this game and tweaking it for a decade and people would still be playing it. Like, it is a gold mine of intellectual property. People love the Warhammer universe. People love kind of the systems and mechanics in Total War when they're done well. So I feel like they're really losing a lot of money here, honestly, and that's why it doesn't make any sense to me, like from a business standpoint, why this is not a higher priority. So as a player, yes, I want to see stuff, but even like putting on my business cap, it doesn't make any sense why this is not a higher priority. So hopefully they get it together. Hopefully there's someone in there with some business sense or savvy that, cracks some skulls in a room and says, hey man, we don't want to give up on this. This is our cash cow. We need to do this right because there's so much money potential now and into the future with this. Maybe they're looking at 40K already. That would be good. I would look forward to that. But I just think it's too early to abandon this. And that's really what it feels like. So it's disappointing, but like I said, I'll keep playing it. I think the game as is all right. It's just not meeting the expectations a lot of people had for Mortal Empires. But I'm still having fun, playing Slaanesh, playing Nurgle, playing some of these other factions. And like I said, we'll go back and revisit some Warhammer 2, and we'll check out the mods. The mods are going to do a lot to add fresh variety, fresh units, a lot of cool things. So we'll look at SFO, maybe Radius. There will be some good content that's coming out, so we'll stick with it. So I don't mean to sound too doom and gloom, but just on the baseline, this feels pretty disappointing, not just for what's said, but how it's being said. The narrative, the implied narrative here, that just feels like a company that's either understaffed or checked out, or both, unfortunately, in my mind. So hopefully, again, they get it together and reprioritize and, you know, really come up with some good content. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did, and I'll see you next time.